want to welcome you to our webinar Wednesday. We do this every last Wednesday of the month, and we try to bring you relevant education and things that we think that our members and our guests would enjoy learning about. So what I'm going to do is just do a few little housekeeping items. It is just me here today. So if you do have questions, be patient. You can send your questions through the Q&A, and there's a tab at the bottom. If you see that Q&A, you can click that and send me your questions, but it might take me a minute to see them only because I don't have anyone attending to that. So be patient, but go ahead and send in your questions. There were a few of you who did send in questions prior, so I'm going to tackle those first. And I purposely am not sharing my screen yet because that was one of the questions, is how do you share your screen? So what we're going to do today is go through some main settings that you may want to make sure you understand. And also we're going to go through creating a meeting and some of the settings within a meeting, which are a little different. And then we will talk about sharing the screen. And then from there, we will wrap up. And like I said, we have about 30 minutes. So hopefully I can get in as many of your questions as possible. So I do see someone has sent me a question, still having trouble sharing screen. So that seems to be a big issue. So what I'm going to do now is, it looks like a big chunk of us are here. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and I'm going to pop you into another screen of Zoom so that you can see settings, and we'll get started. So when you share your screen, number one, you have to if you're not the host has to approve you to share your screen. So the host needs to do that first. And then once that's done, there is a green button that shows up at the bottom of your screen, and it's a share screen button. And you can go ahead and click that share screen button, and then you will be sharing whatever your screen is showing. So as a host, I can decide only myself can share a screen, or all panelists can share a screen in a webinar, or all attendees of a meeting can share a screen. So the host has all the controls, and they have to make sure that it's says that you can share before you can. So go ahead, I'm going to start sharing. There's a few ways that you can share your screen. That's kind of a Zoom 102, but in general, what you do is you click that share screen. You'll see a thumbnail pop up, and you'll see your screen there, and you just click share. And then boom, we're right here. So you will be able to see my screen now. And that's all that it is. You just click this share screen up here. Like I said, it's a green button, and it shows you exactly what to do. It's super easy. But the biggest thing, if you're having an issue or you don't, and you can't share your screen, is that the host hasn't allowed that. So where I am right now is in the main settings of my Zoom account. So if you look over here, you have profiles, meetings, webinars, recordings, settings. So I'm in the settings part. So what I'm doing is I'm going to show you now. They're very well explained as you scroll down this page. So I'm in meeting settings right now. There's also recording settings and telephone settings, but I'm going to sit here in meeting settings right now. So the first part is, what kind of security do you want? In general, remember, this is for every single meeting that you're going to create. What kind of security do you want? So the biggest thing that Zoom had changed in the last year is that you used to never have to have a passcode or sit in a waiting room. You could just join. Well, if you remember, during the beginning of COVID, there was big issues with people popping in to classes and popping in, just kind of hacking into meetings. So because of that, they changed their rules. You have to either have the waiting room open, or you have to have a passcode created for the meeting, or you can do both. So all you do is you just click and you make those changes. Now, my preference is to have a waiting room. I find that when you have a meeting passcode, which is down here, and if I wanted that, I would just click here, but I don't want that. And the reason is that I find when someone needs to have a passcode that they're going to forget it. They're not going to know where to find it. And then you're going to get a gazillion emails while the meeting's going on. Someone's trying to get in, they can't find the passcode. It's just a lot of management. So what I do is do the waiting room right here, and then I'm able to let people in as they join the meeting. So my suggestion is just to do that, but you can always use a passcode if you would like. So I'm going to scroll a little bit down here. You can decide if you want a passcode to be used for people joining by phone. I'm not a big fan of people joining by phone. I do have this checked because I just kind of want to deter that. The reason is that the phone doesn't give you the same experience. Plus, the phone tends to have big technical issues. So if you're just kind of calling in and joining by phone, a lot of times there's all kind of audio issues and those kind of things. So I tend to not encourage people to just come into a meeting on the phone. So as I scroll down, now I'm into schedule meeting. So whenever I schedule any meeting, these are going to be my settings. The host video, is it going to be on or off? So this would be off, this would be on. We can always change this while we're inside of the meeting as it's going on. However, when you create a meeting, originally I have it set that automatically the host video will be on. Then I automatically have set that the participants video will be on no matter what meeting or when I create the meeting. The participants video will be on. However, they and you guys, as you know, can go into your video settings. If you look up here in this top bar, it says stop video. I can go in and click that and stop the video so that people can't see me live. You always have those controls yourself as an attendee. But as I create a meeting, I have it set up that the video will be live. Audio. How am I going to allow people to join the audio of a meeting? So I always click telephone and computer audio. Even though I'm not a fan of people joining by telephone, I still want it to be an option in case they have to. So I always click here and have that set for every single meeting. A couple other things that I want to go over. You can mute all participants when they join a meeting. I have that on. So any meeting that I control and I create, the participants that will be joining me will always be muted. Now, if I don't want that, I just simply click and I turn that off. But I like to have that initially. I find that when people join meetings, there's all kind of stuff. They're not quite ready sometimes, and there's all kind of noise in the background. There's also an upcoming meeting reminder. I always put that on just so that people can get a little reminder email that the meeting is going to be starting soon. So there's some chat settings that you can look into if you'd like. It allows private chats. You can actually turn that off so that people can't have private chats if you want to keep them engaged. You can have that the chats can be either saved or not. So there's all kind of, you can decide on what kind of files people are allowed to share within a meeting. So let's say that you want somebody to be able to share in the chat a picture or a document. You can decide, number one, do I want that to happen? And number two, what kind of file do I want it to include? So I can put in here, I can click that, and I only want Excel spreadsheets, for instance, to be able to be shared. So that is an option for you. And as I go down, I can add a co-host. So this is really important. So if we're in a meeting and and let's say that something happens and I need to walk away, I can add someone as a co-host because I have this clicked as yes, as blue. If I didn't want to be able to do that, I would unclick it. Meeting polls, if you want to have polls during your meetings, yes or no. If you have a webinar add-on to Zoom, it's an extra charge to have webinars. But if you have webinars, you can decide if you want polls or not, surveys, all kind of things. Now, here's the screen sharing. So screen sharing for any meeting or webinar that I create will always be there. And who can share, me or everybody? And this is just a setting that you can create. Now, once again, this can all be changed within a meeting as it's happening. However, when you first set up a meeting, this is how I have it set up in my main settings. Annotations are kind of fun stuff. Whiteboard, that's kind of an advanced thing that maybe I'll do a 102. 102 presentation for some of this advanced stuff. I do want to get down to breakout rooms and Q&A. So if you have a webinar like we have today, you'll notice that there is a Q&A button because I have that clicked. If I didn't want the Q&A button, I would unclick that. But I always have that open so that people can send messages because a webinar does work a little differently than a meeting. A webinar isn't quite as interactive. You're not seeing the other participants right now, where a meeting you will. And it's not quite as easy to communicate in a webinar because it's not set up to be able to do that. Breakout rooms. This is really interesting, and this was a couple questions that came in. So breakout rooms are is a very good tool to have, especially if you're having a networking event or a larger meeting within your company. So you have to, number one, allow breakout rooms to even exist. And by doing this, I'm allowing them to exist. And then there's this setting which allows me to assign people to certain breakout rooms. So that could be, once again, another 102 session, but breakout rooms are super easy and they're really effective to use within a meeting. But you have to have this clicked first so that the system knows that you want that. And then here's your virtual background. I think we all have seen some cool ones that people have used. Video filters, you can go all the way down to all these other settings in here. The other part I want to make sure I bring up is allow live streams of webinars. And this also is relevant for meetings as well. So where can I live stream? So I could be live streaming this right now on Facebook, Workplace, or YouTube because I have all three of those checked. And I have actually done some meetings on Zoom that I was live streaming on my Facebook page at the same time. But I wouldn't be able to do that unless I have this clicked as blue, which means yes, I will allow that. So these are just a couple of the settings that, as you see, there's just a lot in here and you can go and they are well explained, but I wanted to make sure I went in and explained that you do have settings that are for the main account itself. And then when you create a meeting, you can create actually different settings as well. If you wanted to go in and set some recording settings, you can do that. Here's a cloud recording where the recording of this, for instance, that we're recording it today and it's being held, it will be held in the cloud with Zoom. And so I have it clicked that the active speaker view will be what is being recorded. So it gets pretty deep and dirty in some of these settings, but I just want to make sure you knew where they were. So let's go to meetings. I'm seeing some more questions coming in. So let me pop in and see. Can we multiple co-host? Okay, so I will get to these questions after I create this meeting and I promise I'll get to them. All right, so one of the other questions is, how do you actually start a meeting and how do you invite people to it? So these are some of my meetings that I already have set up for the future. And if you see this button over here, schedule a meeting on the right-hand side, that is what you're going to click to start a meeting, to start creating a meeting. So I thought I would just do this live with you so you can see the thought process and how it works. So the topic is, we're just going to be test meeting, but you can put in whatever your topic is. You would want to put in a description because if you're making people register, they will see what the meeting is about in here. So that is if you have people registering, that's where that's relevant. When do I want this meeting? Let's just say it's going to be tomorrow, and I'm going to do 1 o'clock, and it's going to last an hour and 30 minutes. I can check for my time zone, so we're going to keep it on Eastern. There is a check mark if you want to have this recurring. So let's say it's a weekly sales meeting or a monthly sales meeting. You can click recurring. How often is it going to recur? It's going to recur every month, and I'm going to repeat every month, and it occurs. Is it on the 25th of the month, or is it the first Sunday of the month? What is it? I'm going to say it's on the last Wednesday of every month. And then how long do I want to run this recurring meeting on Zoom? So I'm just going to click it. You can do after 7 months, or you can actually pick a date. So that's one way to do a recurring meeting. But let's just say it's just a one-time thing. You're not going to check that, and you won't have to fill any of that out. Now, registration is interesting because registration allows you to gather email addresses. So if you're doing a meeting or a webinar, and one of the things that you want to do for your marketing efforts is to gather email addresses, then this is what you need to click. So what happens is that instead of a link to join a meeting, people are going to get a link where they need to register. And then once they register, then they're going to get their join a meeting link. Okay. You can decide once again if you want to have a passcode or not for this meeting. I don't have it, and I explained why before. I just would get a million emails of what's the passcode, and just a lot to manage. So instead, I'm going to have the waiting room. If I try to get rid of the waiting room, it's going to tell me I need to select at least one of these. So I'm going to click waiting room. Now, right now, this meeting has video host on, participant on. Why is that? Because if you remember in the main settings, that's how I had it set up. But if I decided when I was creating this meeting that I didn't want the participants' videos to come on right away, I can always change it within here. Audio, I still want to keep it both, but I can always change this as I explained in the main settings. And it is set up that people are muted and that they are allowed to join at any time. And then all I do is save. And once I save this, then the registration link is created. So this right here is the link that you would share to get people to register for this meeting. I can also add it to my Google Calendar, Outlook, or Yahoo. And the Outlook also, I believe, works with the Apple Calendar. So here's my new meeting that I just started. And let's say that I want to invite, I don't know, 10 people to this. If you see copy invitation, you can click there. They actually create an email for you. You can copy and paste this and pop it into an email and invite everybody. So that's a really easy way of inviting people to the meeting. All right, so that is how you create a meeting, and that's how that's as easy as it is. Now let me take a look at some of these questions now. Okay, so trouble sharing screen, we went over that. I'm hosting the meeting and need to leave, have issues with my internet. What happens? Do I need to find another host, or will the host capability be passed off? So the host capability will be passed off, but I suggest for you to find a host. And if you remember, in our main settings, there was a setting that allowed me to have a co-host. So what I would do is pick somebody that knows how to work Zoom. And if you click on their tile, on their picture, there's 3 dots, and in the 3 dots, you can make them a co-host. So that's what I would do for that. Can there be multiple co-hosts? If you have an account that has more than one person in it, so you could have an account and you could pay extra to have some people in here that could always host for you. Yes, you can have multiple, but usually it's just one co-host. A lot of these features that I'm talking about are on the paid account, but not all. So the paid account allows you a lot more flexibility. The free account only allows you 40 minutes for a meeting. If you need longer, then you're going to need a paid account. And some of the other functions that I just went over is for just paid accounts. So there is an issue if you do want to get kind of fancy with it. You might want to upgrade to a paid account, but it doesn't need to be like the super pro or whatever that real expensive line is. You can just go one level up and you should be good. Can you use the background if you are in someone else's Zoom? So if that means, can I use a virtual background if I'm signing into someone else's meeting? Yes, that is under your video settings. So if you click this arrow next to video settings, it says choose virtual background, and it'll allow me to choose this virtual background, or I can upload my own. So you can upload whatever you want. The issue is that depending on your computer, it may not work well. You might need a green screen. So if you see this, I have a green screen, you might want to click that. If you don't, my computer, for instance, if I tried to do a virtual background right now, my computer usually doesn't do well with it, but it looks like it is today. But usually what happens is that I needed a green screen, but I must have gotten an updated setting, so good for me. So that was another one of the questions. Does everyone have those settings? So yes, so the settings that you saw in the main part of my, the beginning part of my talk, some of those aren't going to be relevant. So depending if you have a webinar upgrade, you're not going to have webinar settings. But you will always have the video, you'll always have the audio, you'll have a big chunk of those settings. If you're not seeing them, then they are in the paid account. Is there a cost associated with the meeting advanced features? Yes, it just depends on the level and the amount of features that you want. The features I just showed you, I am just on a level up from the free. So the other features might be for classrooms. They have a whole nother level of things that they can do in their Zooms. So there's some that are made just for education, and there's some that are made just for certain ways that Zoom is being used right now. But what I just showed you is really the basic main settings that you'll get when you upgrade up a level. Does using my iPhone different? Yes. So whenever you use a phone, a mobile device to come into Zoom, you lose some things. So for instance, you can only see 4 people at a time in a meeting when you're on your phone. If you are on your computer, you can see up to 49 people at a time. So that is one thing that you're going to miss if you're on your phone. Also, the phone does not allow virtual backgrounds, or you can't do touch-ups. I don't know if you guys knew this, but you can go into your video settings. If you look what I'm doing here, and you can go and it has all kind of settings within here. One of them right here is touch up my appearance. I always have that clicked, by the way. So touch up my appearance just means that it just makes you look a little better than maybe you do, sitting doing this meeting in your office. So that is something that everybody does have within their settings. Also with phones, you can't record locally, which means that you can't record a meeting on your phone. It would have to go into the cloud. You cannot create polls. You can't share your screen when you're using a phone. And when you go live, you can only do that on a computer. You cannot do that on a phone. So there are a lot of restrictions when you do come on your phone. So I always suggest whenever people are coming into one of my meetings to come in on a computer. You just get a better experience, and you just have more options when you're there. So if you guys can see this navigation bar, I can actually move this around. All I did is I put my arrow and I clicked on the left button of my mouse, and I can move it around if you want to do that. So what I also wanted to show you is, let's say your microphone's not working. I think that's happened a few times here and there for people. I actually am using a headset. So there's been a couple times that my headset wasn't checked off here. And that meant that there was the Zoom settings didn't know that I was trying to use my headset. If I didn't have a headset, then it would just use my regular computer. I will tell you though that if you do use a headset, it is much clearer, and the background noise isn't quite as bad. So I also you can test your speaker and microphone if you're ever wondering, like, is this thing working? So do I hear a ringtone? Yes. Do I hear a replay? Yes. And so even before a meeting gets started, that your audio is working. Couple other things in your audio settings. You can use the volume for your speaker, goes up and down. Your microphone, so I must be really loud right now to you guys, but it goes up and down depending on how I want that to be on my Zoom. And suppress background noise, so it can be auto, low, medium, or high. I have it high because I have a dog that just seems to always want to be around me when I'm on Zoom. So I have it on high, but it can suppress the background noise. So all of this is within the audio setting. Okay. So the video settings, once again, you can do your virtual, you can have a little fun and do some filters. So this is, if you guys know about the lawyer, that guy that was a cat and couldn't get that off of Zoom, this is where he got stuck. So these are filters. I can put some sunglasses on me. I can do all kind of stuff if I wanted to do that. So this is just some things that can make the experience a little bit more fun if it's a little bit, not a real strict meeting that you're having. So before we run out of time, I do see another question. Let me see what this is. Okay, so recording, that's a perfect segue because I did want to talk about recordings. So the host is in charge of recordings. So I'm going to click the recording here. And so what happens is, right now, this webinar is being recorded. And when I'm done, then it'll stop. And I have it set that it will record within Zoom. I don't have it recording on my computer. So once a recording is done, then this pops up in your recording tab. Okay. And once again, I'm in cloud recordings because I'm not having it saved in my computer. If I did, I would have it there, but I'm not. So these are my cloud recordings. Let's say that I want to go in and share this. So I pull up this recording and I download the files here. Now I can choose how I want this downloaded. So there are some actual settings that allows me to decide, do I just want the video and audio? Do I also want an audio version? So there are some settings within recordings where you can decide how many versions of a recorded meeting that you want. I don't know if that made sense to you or not, but you can just have an audio, and that could then be a podcast for you. You can have it as a video and audio. So there are a couple ways that you can share that. But what you would do is download it onto your computer, and then you can share it from there. Or you can click here and it says copy shareable link. So that is now in my clipboard. So it's kind of waiting for me to paste it into an email. So if I went to create an email, I could just copy and paste that into my email and say, here's a recording. Here's a link to hear this recording. Or I can actually, if I want to upload it, for instance, into YouTube or upload it into Facebook, I need the actual file, and that's when I'm going to download it. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's see if there's any other questions, if I missed anything. Don't think I missed any questions here. Hopefully I was able to give you a good overview of some of this confusing stuff because it can be a lot. I will tell you, and I can send this out as well, that there are really, really good instructional videos that Zoom already has within their system. So if you go to Zoom, I'm going to move me down here. And if you see this top right corner and it has support, if you click support, it has a ton of ways to be able to find videos on how to do things. They also have live trainings. I actually took one yesterday on some advanced things, and I learned a couple cool advanced things that are coming. They're having transcripts now, so I could actually have it so that I could have transcripts of all of my meetings available for everybody. So the live webinars and live trainings are actually pretty good. But if you don't want to do that, you can join a meeting. You can find out how to do that. Record a meeting. You can find out how to do that. So that's all in that support tab. So hopefully you saw that. So we are, believe it or not, at 12:30. So that was really fast. I just slammed a lot of information in there. Please, if you need to ask me any more questions, I'll do my best. I'm not a Zoom expert per se, but I just use it a lot. And I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. Also, let me know if you would like a Zoom 102, which would actually help us know what your needs are. So I'm going to do this right now. Let's see if I can get this to work on the fly. Okay, single choice. Do you want Zoom 102? So what I'm doing is I'm creating a poll right now. I'm going to have it anonymous, so I don't know who's saying what. And I'm going to save this. Oh, yes, no. So if you can hang on with me, let me know if you see that poll. Here it goes. So do me a quick favor for me and fill this out if you would like a Zoom 102 that we can go over some more stuff. Looks like we're showing a lot of yeses. So that is awesome. And that's just one more lesson. In the middle of a meeting, you can create a poll. Now, polls are an upgraded tool. So you would have to have an upgraded version, I believe, of Zoom to do that. So we're at 7 already. And so it looks like we might be doing a Zoom 102. All right, I'm going to end the poll. I'm going to share the results so you can see. And we got 100% on that. So that's a no-brainer. All right, we are 12:32, and I do thank you for participating. I'm going to stop share right now. And I do thank you for participating today. I know it was quick, but hopefully you were able to pick up some information and got some answers. So feel free, Kathleen at northwestchambermd.com. Shoot me an email with any questions, and I will develop a Zoom 102 and see how else I can help you guys. All right, you have a great rest of the day, and I look forward to seeing you in person soon one day, I hope. All right, take care.